Hey everyone joining us here today. Go ahead, we'll get started here in a few minutes. And if you're just joining us, go ahead and get started and post on the comments where you're coming from. Um, and we'll get started here in a little bit. Looks like we're getting a lot of people joining in. If you're just joining us, feel free to jump on and say where you're listening in from, and throw a like in there or a comment. Hey Christopher, how are you tonight from Massachusetts? Looks like we got someone watching in from Use Maps. So if you're just joining in, my name is Captain Jamal Olatunde, and I am the West Point athlete admissions officer. So tonight we'll be talking a little bit about what it looks like from the athlete's point of view. And if you haven't done so already, feel free to like the West Point admissions page so you can get live updates and feeds on what's going on here at West Point. Tonight we'll have some moderators answering some questions, so feel free to throw your questions in the comment section, and we'll get to those, and hopefully I'll try to answer some questions here live. Hey Kelly from Minnesota. Hey Molly from Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Okay, so we'll get started. Like I said, my name is Captain Jamal Olatunde. I'm the athlete admissions officer here at West Point. So tonight we're going to give you a little bit of an informational brief, and generally what this looks like is we'll talk to you about West Point admissions, but tonight we'll do a little bit different, and I'll put a little bit of emphasis on what it looks like as a recruited athlete and what it looks like as an athlete when you are here as a cadet. So what we'll talk about is the West Point experience. The West Point experience, for the most part, is the same for almost everybody, but athletes is a little different. Not too much different, but there are some differences. We'll talk about what West Point has to offer, about the academy, about cadet life, and then most importantly, the application process. I'll put a little emphasis on those completing their applications now, as well as those that are about to start their application process. So this is what drives the West Point experience. West Point is going to be an experience that is exciting and challenging, and it's meant to develop cadets into leaders of character. We are an academy that develops leaders of character and puts a lot of emphasis on the Army as well as our nation and the world. So we at the academy will put a lot of emphasis on developing cadets into leaders. It's a premier leadership academy, and we put a lot of emphasis on developing. So what is West Point about? If you decide that you want to apply to West Point, you're essentially signing up for service to our nation. You're going to prepare to be an example for for your generations and those that follow. So what it looks like is anyone who's in the future trying to become a cadet, they're looking at you as the service to our nation. West Point's challenging. It's going to challenge you academically, mentally, and physically. And that's how we try to develop leaders of character. So what does West Point have to offer? Here you'll see a list of some things that West Point has to offer. They're typically the same things that you'll see at a normal college, but the difference is that you'll get all of this. Tuition is taken care of. Books and fees, room and board is what you'll see at a normal college. All of that is taken care of. You'll get medical care, dental care, as well as a monthly stipend. So, unlike other colleges, you'll be getting paid. So, what I'd like to highlight here is that we get a lot of accolades every year, and one of the biggest things that I like to highlight is the accessible professors. That's something that we'll get to a little bit in later on down in the slides, but West Point has the most accessible professors year in and year out. You'll get to see a picture of what West Point looks like, and you'll get to see how small the campus is, and that plays a lot into how accessible the professors are. And so what West Point will guarantee is 100% job placement into your chosen career path. So once you graduate from West Point, you'll receive a commission to serve as an officer in the United States Army, using what you've learned here at West Point and develop how West Point has developed you into a leader of character, and take those skills into the Army. Here are the branch opportunities that you'll get to choose from once graduating from West Point. I graduated West Point as an engineer, and so my time in the Army has been solely as an engineer. You'll get the opportunity to choose from a number of different opportunities, to include infantry, military intelligence, and signal corps. Some other opportunities that you can get further on down the line include Special Forces, Civil Affairs, and Judge Advocate Corps. You'll get the opportunity to apply for the Judge Advocate Corps, as well as other opportunities within the functional area. So I'll take this time to take a look at our feed and see if there are any questions. So we got a question asking, what is the chance of a soldier getting in? Soldiers can get in just as easily as any candidate can get in. Soldiers will have their own regional commander that will allow them to fill out their application and apply and get accepted and gain admission to West Point. So here's a little history about West Point. West Point was established by President Jefferson in 1802, but prior to that, it was used as a fortress. What I like to highlight is that West Point is America's first academy and school of engineering. My degree was in mechanical engineering, and although I enjoyed it, it was pretty tough. Later on down the line, Navy and Air Force used West Point as a model for developing their academies. Here is a slide of the legacy of leadership. What this tells you is that you can do a number of things after graduating. Coach K is most well known for being the coach at Duke. Alex Gorski is a CEO. Alejandro Villanueva is playing on the Pittsburgh Steelers as the offensive tackle. This shows that you can do a number of different things to include playing sports after graduating. So here at West Point, we have 4 pillars that will shape you throughout your 47-month journey. There's the academic pillar, which we'll get into a little bit further on down the line. Academically, you'll be challenged. You'll learn a number of different skills, and you'll get to put those to use. Physically and military kind of go hand in hand. You'll train physically and train militarily to become leaders of character, which is the last pillar, character. You'll get developed and pushed to be able to, when you graduate, be able to lead soldiers with character. So cadet life. So before we get on, I'll go back to our comment section and see if there are any questions. So Christopher asked, how important is a sport for the overall admissions consideration? So when we look at a file, we like to see a well-rounded cadet or a well-rounded candidate. So candidates that participate in sports, maybe they're lettering, maybe they're the team captain, as well as extracurricular activities. So here at West Point, we use a little bit of lingo. So when you're here, you'll be called a plebe if you're a freshman. Yearling for sophomores, cows for juniors, and firsties for seniors. If you know what the reason for what the names mean, go ahead and post that in the comment section. So this is what a typical day looks like. Here's where I'll throw in a little bit of a difference for an athlete. So every cadet is an athlete, but a D1 athlete, a collegiate athlete, will have a little bit of a compressed time. You may have some practice early on in the morning, and then during the day you'll have class, but it'll be a little bit compressed. So all your classes will be pushed together a little bit, and then in the afternoon, that's when you'll get your opportunity to play sports on your team. Most teams will have study periods as well as time for you to work on homework, study, and then there's lights out. So this is what I was talking about prior, and that's the small class sizes. So the class sizes will range from 15 to 18 cadets. And generally when you get into your junior and senior year, the class size will get even smaller. The faculty are subject matter experts in their field. The faculty will go and train and get their education in the field that they're going to teach. And how the faculty break down is that 30% of the professors are civilian professors. Those are more of your tenured professors that will stay here for a longer period of time. 20% of those people are assigned active duty officers. And 50% are military officers that are assigned on a 2 to 3 year assignment. Similar to myself, I'm here on a 2 to 3 year assignment, and I'm working towards moving on after those 2 to 3 years. We have a lot of students who receive a number of different achievements, a number of different scholars from Rhodes to Marshall scholars. And here are our majors. We have 36 academic majors. Like I mentioned before, my major was in mechanical engineering. Mechanical engineering will shape your classes as well as push you academically. And here's what a typical 4-year academic journey will look like. During your plebe and yearling year, you'll take most of your core classes. You'll take military leadership classes that will assist you in developing that military pillar that you'll go through. And in your COW and first years, that's when you'll start taking your major classes and a number of different elective classes. Every cadet will also take an engineering sequence. As you can see on the top of the screen, under COW and firstie, you'll start your engineering sequence and it'll go into your firstie year. NCAA sports. So here's where we are. Here's a list of all the NCAA sports that West Point participates in. I'll let you take a look at these sports and give you a second to see if this is a sport that you play. If you play any of these sports, go ahead and put in the comment section what sports you play and what position if you want. Here's a list of the club sports. So every cadet is an athlete, and so every cadet will play some sort of sport. And if they're not playing NCAA sports, they're either playing club sports or intramural sports. Club sports are just as intensive as the NCAA sports. Intramural sports will be played between companies, which are groups of cadets throughout the whole school, and they'll play each other in a number of different things to include basketball, ultimate frisbee, and wrestling. Looks like we got a number of athletes in the comments section. So the 4-year military journey. This is the journey that develops you militarily throughout your time here at West Point. The first opportunity that you'll get to train militarily is at cadet basic training. That's your first 6 weeks here. Then you move on after your freshman year, your plebe year, and then you move on to cadet field training. Then there's a number of different opportunities in your junior and senior year to do different types of trainings and academic opportunities that will shape you into a leader of character for when you graduate. So on that other slide, you saw the opportunities that were the broadening opportunities. So these are a number of different broadening opportunities that you'll get the opportunity to participate in. You can spend a semester abroad. You can also do a number of internships, which is what we call IADs. You can also do military qualification schools. These schools will allow you to go to schools that are Army schools and develop you militarily for your future as a leader of character. So I'll take this time to go to this comment section and take a look at all the athletes that we got out here. So it looks like Tiffany's son is a lefty pitcher from SoCal. We've got a number of swimmers and football players. If you have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and comment below. So like mentioned earlier, we seek a well-rounded cadet or candidate who demonstrates excellent academic ability, leadership potential, as well as overall fitness. So here are our eligibility requirements. You must be a U.S. citizen, and you must be 17, between the ages of 17 and 23 years old the day you enroll. And you can't be legally, you can't be pregnant or have legal obligation to support a child. So here's the important stuff. Steps to admissions. First, you complete the candidate questionnaire. The candidate questionnaire is an extensive questionnaire that takes some time. So take the time to set some time and complete this questionnaire. When you complete the questionnaire, you should receive an email saying that you've completed it. So if you haven't and you're completing the questionnaire, reach out to us and try and find out what the issue is. And if you're a qualified applicant, you'll receive a second step kit. And that'll give you access to your portal. So how we evaluate applications is broken down into 3 parts. 60% of it is a big portion, and that's your academics. It's your GPA, and as of this year, your SAT and ACT. 30% of it is leadership. That comes from your school evaluations, your extracurricular activities, and your interviews. For athletes, interviews are a little bit different. You'll do an interview with your coach, and that's where your interview will come from. The last part is your CFA. Although it is 10%, the CFA is not an easy fitness test. Take the time to practice the CFA so you can complete it and pass it. In addition to the application, you must be medically qualified as well as receive a nomination. What's important to note here for both people applying this year and in the next year is that the application deadline is 31 January. We're approaching the deadline fast, so continue to work to complete your application before the deadline. What's different than the application deadline is the medical qualification deadline. The medical qualification deadline is April 15th. So if you're applying now and you haven't completed your medical, you still have time. Work hard to complete your medical qualification because April will come fast. You must take and pass the full Dauber medical evaluation. And if you find that you receive a status that shows you're disqualified, waivers may be considered for competitive candidates. And the last thing that I mentioned in addition to the academic application is the nomination. There are 2 different types of nominations. There's the service-connected nominations and the congressional nominations. Service-connected nominations are for children of career military, children of vets who are 100% disabled or deceased, enlisted members of the U.S. Army and U.S. Army Reserve, which is what was mentioned in the question prior to, as well as ROTC and JROTC. An important thing about the JROTC schools is that non-Army JROTCs must be an honor unit of distinction. The congressional nomination is a nomination that everyone can apply for, and I emphasize to apply for all of them. You can apply for 1 congressional representative, your 2 senators, as well as the vice president. Every congressional office has different nomination requirements, and so reach out to your local reps and senators at those links below. So this is an important part of your application, and it is important that you apply for your nominations for the incoming class of candidates. Apply for them early. In your portal, you'll be able to see the point of contacts for your congressional members so you can reach out to them and their websites. So your strategy during the application process for those that will start it here pretty soon is be proactive. The important thing to do is complete as much of your application as early as possible. Apply to all nomination sources. We just mentioned all the nomination sources, and if you fit any of them, apply to them. You can apply to all the congressional nominations and any service-connected nominations that you fit. Train for the CFA. It's a difficult test. Ensure that you watch the videos that are posted on the portal. It is important to have the right form when you're submitting your CFA, which will allow you to pass the test. Study and prepare for the ACT and SATs. Seek opportunities. If you're in any type of activity, extracurricular activity or sports, try to be the leader on your team. Try to be the team captain. Also, contact your local field force. They're always there to help you navigate through this process. And again, the application deadline is 31 January, and the medical deadline is 15 April. It's important that those that are applying now know that the medical deadline is 15 April. Complete your application by 31 January and complete your medical qualification by 15 April. So when you're thinking of applying, for those applying to be in the class of 2026, you have to ask yourself a few questions. Are you a leader? Do you have what it takes to lead soldiers in the future once you graduate? Are you mentally tough? Are you physically fit? And are you ready for this challenge? Do you want to be an Army officer? So we'll leave this on this screen to take a few questions. So Kimberly asks, my son is a recruited athlete for the upcoming school year. Can you please explain how the process differs for recruited athletes? So for recruited athletes, the process is very similar. You apply in the same means, and the only real difference for your application comes from your interview. Your interview will be done with a coach instead of a field force member that will do the interviews in the region. So there's a question about contacting the coaches. On the Go Army website, the Go Army Sports website, they have coaching rosters that you can contact. There's a question about presidential nominations. So if you do see presidential nomination on your portal, that is a service-connected nomination. So I'll move forward and talk a little bit about the Summer Leaders Experience. The Summer Leaders Experience, or SLE, is essentially a fast-paced program of academic classes, military training, physical fitness, and intramural athletics. This is a short stint of what you'll get to experience at West Point during your 47 months at West Point. When to apply? For those of you who are juniors, you can start applying now. You have until March of your junior year to submit your applications. It is important that you start applying for SLE and continue to monitor the West Point admissions page for any updates for SLE. Continue to stay connected. Follow us online on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at West Point Admissions. We also have our West Point Admissions website below. So I'll take this time to answer a few more questions. So we have a question asking, when should you apply for nominations? You should go to your you should start applying for your nominations as soon as the nominations open. There's a number of different deadlines and opportunities, so continue to monitor your representatives and your senators' websites to see the deadlines and dates that you can apply. Someone is asking about the DOB-MERB medical qualification. For those that are applying for the class of 2025, the medical qualification deadline is April 15th. Someone else is asking, do you need a nomination? So every candidate, whether they're an athlete or not, will need some sort of nomination. So someone's asking, when will recruited athletes find out if they're getting an appointment? Recruited athletes are on the same line of notification as any other candidate. So someone else is asking, what does it take to get in? And so it's important to look at the whole picture of a candidate, whether it's your academics, whether it's your physical fitness, and whether it's your leadership. So for those that are applying in the next year and you're having issues with SATs and ACT, continue to keep monitoring the test availability, and we'll work with you for your upcoming year. So if there aren't any questions, again, feel free to follow us at West Point Admissions on all platforms. And if you didn't get your question answered while this briefing was going on, we'll be sure to answer your questions in the next 24 hours.